In the space of 24 hours this week, the government was dealt two damning judgments on its treatment of disadvantaged children. First, on Sunday, came Alan Milburn and the entire social mobility team's resignation, stating the government lacks the necessary bandwidth to ensure that the rhetoric of healing social division is matched with reality. Then the next morning, the Joseph Rowntree Foundation's publication of research finding almost 400,000 more children have been plunged into poverty in the past 4 years. To put it in perspective, that means Theresa May and her predecessors have overseen the first sustained increases in child poverty in this country for 20 years. Whether the measure is social mobility or standards of living, after years of social security cuts coinciding with stagnant wages and rising costs, there is the lurking feeling that we are watching hard-won progress being thrown away. In the mid-1990s, about a third of children were living in families classed as lacking the resources for their minimum needs until labor governments and the introduction of tax credits, as well as higher employment, saw the rate fall to 27% in 2011-12. By 2016, David Cameron's austerity agenda had seen child poverty rates shoot up to 30%. Similarly, just before its mass resignations, the latest annual report by the government's social mobility watchdog warned that Britain is in a spiral of ever-growing division, with rural, coastal, and former industrial areas left with dwindling prospects. The region I grew up in, the East Midlands, has the accolade of taking 10 of the top 20 spots for the worst regions for social mobility. With Theresa May's vow to place fairness and social justice at the heart of her premiership perhaps ringing in his ears, Milburn's words on Sunday were scathing. The worst position in politics is to set out a proposition that you're going to heal social divisions and then do nothing about it. He's right, but actually, I think it's much worse. It isn't simply that the Conservatives have done nothing to help working-class children's life chances or well-being, but that they're introducing policies that are actively making them worse. Look at anti-welfare measures like cutting in work benefits or freezing housing and children's benefits. Or an education system that scrapped education maintenance grants while stripping school budgets to the extent that teachers are unable to afford paper for their pupils. Not to mention the closure of local youth clubs and children's centers. Research from Barnardo's this week finds funding to early years children's services has been cut by almost 50% in some areas since 2010. Research this week finds funding to early years children's services has been cut by almost 50% in some areas since 2010. These measures don't simply represent the death knell of serious attempts at social mobility in this country, they spread childhood deprivation. Social mobility, inequality, and absolute income are not unrelated issues. We know, for instance, that reducing inequality helps improve social mobility, but as we respond to the Conservatives' failings, it would be a mistake to put the focus on addressing social mobility specifically. Social mobility is in many ways an easy political agenda, one that even right-wing politicians are happy to articulate.